You are under no obligation to be the person you were told to be. Alan Watts. Now sit with that for a moment. Let it echo, because somewhere along the line you were told a story, not just told, conditioned, rehearsed, programmed. You were told that if you played by the rules, if you stayed in line, if you gave your youth, your time, your sweat, and your sanity to the system, one day you'd be free. That day, they said, would come around 65. It had a name, a golden label, retirement. But let me ask you, what if that was never meant to free you? What if retirement was never your reward, but just a final chapter in a long, quiet captivity? Let me tell you about a man I met. His name was Walter C. Morgan, born in 1941, a man who did everything right. Factory worker for 43 years, married young, never missed a shift, never rebelled, never traveled, never questioned. He believed in the promise, and when he turned 65, he retired. They gave him a cake, a speech, a check, and within a year, Walter was gone. No, not dead. Not physically, but something inside him switched off, like a light that had been on for too long and no longer knew how to shine. I remember sitting with him one fall evening. Leaves were falling in his backyard like burnt paper. And he said to me, "You know, son, they told me freedom was coming, but all I got was silence. What they don't tell you is that when you reach the end of the path they sold you, there's nothing waiting for you there. No choir, no liberation, no meaning, because the promise was never real." But before I do, subscribe to this channel if you're ready to hear what they never wanted you to question. Hit that bell, because what comes next will shake the very foundation of how you see life itself. You see, the myth of retirement, it's the most seductive lie the modern world has ever told. It whispers to the young, work hard now so you can play later. It tells the exhausted just a few more years, and it convinces the old this is what you've been waiting for. But no one tells you what happens when the waiting is over. No one talks about the void, the identity collapse, the crushing realization that for 40 years, your sense of self was never yours. It was leased, borrowed, tied to a job, a title, a role. When that role disappears, who are you? Alan Watts tried to warn us. He said, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. But we didn't listen, because we were too busy running toward a mirage, toward a freedom that was never freedom, just another form of obedience dressed in leisure wear. Let me take you back even further, to 1889, Germany. Otto von Bismarck, the first official retirement age, 65. But here's the twist. Back then, most people didn't even live that long. Retirement wasn't a gift. It was a way to clear the old out of the workforce, to make room for the young. It wasn't compassion. It was strategy, economic management, human shelving. But we took it and made it sacred. We built our lives around it, sacrificed time with our children for it, delayed our passions, postponed joy. We told ourselves, not now, later, always later. And now that later is here, it feels strangely hollow, doesn't it? Maybe that's why depression spikes after retirement. Maybe that's why thousands of retirees quietly admit to feeling lost, irrelevant, invisible. Because deep down, we know we've been tricked. But here's the thing. This doesn't have to be the end of the road. It could be the beginning, if you're willing to challenge the script. But only if you're brave enough to ask, what if I was never meant to wait? What if life isn't about preparation, but presence? What if freedom isn't at the end of the journey, but right here, in this very moment? We're just getting started. In the next part of this story, we'll explore how ancient teachings, lost philosophies, and buried wisdom from across cultures all converge on one truth, that the real prison isn't a cubicle or a clock in time, but the idea that you have to earn your right to live. Make sure you subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and if this message stirred something inside you, drop a comment. Tell me what you were promised and what you actually found. Because the real rebellion begins when you stop waiting. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. Alan Watts. You see, the most dangerous prison is the one you can't see, the one built not of walls but of beliefs. And the belief that you must wait your entire life to finally begin living is one of the oldest, deepest lies ever told. But here's what they never expected, that we would remember, that we would begin to dig beneath the silence. And in that digging, we would find stories, old stories, stories buried in dust and forgotten by modern noise. Let me take you into one of them. There's an old Buddhist parable. It speaks of a man who searched all his life for peace. He became a monk, he fasted, he meditated beneath the Bodhi tree, he traveled to distant monasteries chasing the silence. And one day, exhausted, aged, he asked his teacher, "Master, when will I find peace?" The old master looked at him and said, "When you stop asking where it is." You see, even in sacred paths, the mind tricks us into waiting, waiting for enlightenment, waiting for retirement, waiting for tomorrow. But presence cannot be postponed. And freedom, it cannot be scheduled. Alan Watts said, "The future is a concept, it doesn't exist. There is no such thing as tomorrow, there never will be, because time is always now." And yet we've built entire lives on a fantasy called later. Let me show you another one, a story from the book of Ecclesiastes, hidden deep within the Bible, often ignored but piercing in its honesty. The preacher writes, "What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing." And then a brutal truth, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Why would the Bible say something so hopeless? Because it's not hopeless. It's honest. It's a whisper through time. You are not here to become something. You are here to be. The lie of retirement is the same lie the preacher fought against, that we must suffer now to be rewarded later, that life must be endured before it can be enjoyed. But you are not a mule being led with a carrot. You are not an engine designed for extraction. You are life itself, and life was meant to flow. Let's cross the desert. Let me bring you to another voice. The Sufi poet Rumi, 13th century Persia, a mystic who danced with God in his poetry. He wrote, "Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you." And then this, "You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life?" Doesn't that sound familiar? Because that's what this system teaches you to do, to crawl, to obey, to wait for permission. But you were born with presence. You were born with awareness. You were born to soar. Now let me shake your soul a little deeper. Have you heard of the just world fallacy? Psychologists coined this term for a dangerous belief we all quietly hold, that if we are good, if we behave, if we work hard, we will be rewarded. The world, we believe, is just, but it isn't. This fallacy keeps us in chains. We tolerate the unbearable because we think the reward is coming. We stay in broken jobs, we stay in lives that feel hollow, because we think, eventually I'll be free. But eventually is a lie. It is the cage, it is the fog that blinds you from what's real. And what is real is now. Let me tell you a real story. In 2021, a Reddit post went viral. A man named John, a retired Boeing engineer, wrote, "I spent my entire life in meetings, deadlines, weekend emails. I missed my daughter's ballet recitals. I told myself I was doing it for retirement. I retired last year. I bought the boat. I haven't touched it once. I wake up every day wondering, who am I now? And why didn't anyone warn me that retirement would feel like death with air conditioning?" That post has over 110,000 upvotes because millions saw themselves in John. Millions realized, too late. But you don't have to. That's why this message matters. If you're hearing my voice right now, you're still in the game. You're still alive. And it's not too late to flip the script. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to walk away from the someday lie. If these words wake something in you, don't ignore it. You're not crazy. You're waking up. Now, let me circle back to Alan Watts. He said something radical, something the system could never monetize. This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you're doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play. Let that sink in. Play. Not duty, not debt, not drudgery, but play. You weren't meant to earn your way to life. You were meant to live fully, now, and without waiting for permission. Let me close this part with a whisper. The religions, the mystics, the sages across time, from the Bible to Buddhism, from Sufism to Stoicism, they all converge on one single truth, that the present moment is the only doorway to freedom you will ever find. And the tragedy is, most people never open it, because they're waiting for a key they already hold in their hand. In the next part of this journey, we'll confront the real mechanism behind the retirement myth. consumerism, identity collapse, and how corporations sell you freedom that only keeps you in chains. Make sure you hit subscribe, click the bell, leave a comment below if you've ever felt trapped by the idea of someday. Let this community be a space for the awakened, because this isn't just a video. This is the call to come home to your own life. Stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence. Alan Watts. So now that you see the myth, the old script crumbling like dry parchment in your hands, you're probably wondering, if retirement wasn't freedom, if it was never meant to be, then what is? And more importantly, who profits from the lie? Let's talk about that. Because once they take your labor, they don't stop. They take your identity, then they take your attention. And finally, they sell you your own freedom back with a price tag. The moment you retire, you're no longer a producer in the system, so they reinvent you as a consumer. Cruises, golf packages, retirement homes with scented lobbies and illusionary luxury, financial freedom seminars that leave you more anxious than secure. They sell you the idea that finally you have time to enjoy life, as long as you buy their version of it. But here's the cruel irony. They don't want you to enjoy life. They want you to keep seeking, keep searching, keep feeling incomplete, because that emptiness keeps their machine alive. Alan Watts said it with piercing clarity. The desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. Let that ring in your soul for a moment. The more you chase safety, the more fragile you become. And when you finally reach the safe zone they promised, you realize it's just a well-decorated cage. I once met a man named Louis King. He was 72, owned 3 homes, had a yacht, retired from one of the biggest investment firms in New York. He told me, I thought I was free, but all I did was exchange my office for a marble kitchen and an expensive I bought things to prove to myself I wasn't lost, but inside I was drowning, and worse, I couldn't tell anyone. Why? Because society tells you, you're retired now. You made it. Smile. But what if making it meant missing it? Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow or to reject retirement altogether. No, I'm telling you to redefine what freedom means before someone else defines it for you. Because here's the truth. Freedom isn't found in the absence of work, but in the presence of meaning. It isn't about escaping duty. It's about escaping disconnection. And disconnection is what they sell you, wrapped in luxury, packaged as success. But here's what they can't sell, what they'll never be able to touch: your awareness, your presence, your ability to look at your life and say, I don't need to wait any longer. I don't need to become someone else. I am here, and I am enough. Let me speak to you now, not to the role you play, not to the mask you wear, but to the core of you. You might be 22 or 52. You might be sitting in traffic or walking in silence. Wherever you are, whatever you've been taught to believe, you don't have to wait until you're tired to rest, until you're old to reflect, until you're retired to finally begin living. You can choose to live now. That's the wild, radical truth Alan Watts tried to awaken in us, not by preaching, but by reminding that this moment, right now, is the only life you'll ever have. And anything that tells you to postpone it isn't protecting you. It's robbing you. So what do you do with this? Where do you go from here? I'll tell you. You retire today, not from your job, but from the idea that freedom lives in the future. You walk away from the toxic script that told you to earn joy through suffering, to prove your worth through productivity, to delay your soul's deepest longing for a date on a calendar. You take back your days, you take back your thoughts, you take back your presence, you stop performing and start being. You stop running and start listening. And in that silence, you might hear something strange, something sacred, something forgotten: yourself. Voice deepens with conviction, a quiet crescendo. This video won't go viral on its own because it speaks against everything the world profits from, but it will reach who it's meant to reach. And if that person is you, then do something rebellious today. Leave a comment below. Tell the world what you're walking away from, what you're finally saying no more to. Subscribe, turn on the bell, come back, because this channel, this space, is not about fame. It's about freedom, the kind that can't be bought, the kind that lives from within you. You are not a role. You are the playing of life itself. Alan Watts.